There are tons of animals alive on the planet, but what if I told you 99% of species that ever exist are gone, but some of them reappear? Extinct animals are a fascination of mine, and they've been featured on the channel a bunch of times before. So let's go through some animals that were extinct, but then they were found again and now they're not extinct. Almost like a Jesus moment back from the dead. First, let's talk about crested geckos. Crested geckos are one of the most common pet lizards in the entire pet hobby. So how on earth is it that they used to be extinct, but now there's millions and millions and millions of them? Well, it turns out they were described in the 1800s in New Caledonia. New Caledonia is a couple of islands or a chain of islands off the coast of Australia, kind of in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean. And after they first were described in 1866, nobody saw them ever again. So they were presumed extinct. And then in 1994, a group of scientists went to New Caledonia. They started looking around for a bunch of species on New Caledonia, which, by the way, is really far, really expensive, tough to get to, and most people aren't looking around there. And while they were in a research encampment, one of these crested geckos literally fall on a clipboard of one of the researchers, and they were nowhere near where they thought they'd find them in the first place. So the researcher says, "Holy cow, I can't believe what I have here." And sure enough, it was a crested gecko. This was in 1994. Let me remind you, 30 years ago as of the time of recording this video. Now, if you go to a reptile expo, reptile show, pet store, reptile store especially, there are tons of them. I have crested geckos literally 20 feet from me right now. A really cool species. I'm so glad that they're back, but can you just imagine if nobody went there to New Caledonia and found them? We could still think these things were extinct and not have maybe the most popular reptile that there is in the hobby. Coming up at number 4, the Fernandina Galápagos Tortoise. Now everybody knows about the Galapagos tortoises. Some of the tortoises from the Galapagos are by far the biggest species on the planet. Aldabras, Galapagos giants, they are absolutely massive. And what's interesting about the Galapagos Islands, well, many things, but this is where Darwin first had his theory about evolution in the first place and formulated it. This is a place off the coast of Ecuador where there are animals that occur nowhere in the world, and there's stuff that doesn't look anything like anything else in the world. It is one of the most protected places on the earth, and it's just in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, way off the coast of South America. Now, this species was originally known from one specimen, a male, that was found and killed by members of the 1906 California Academy of Sciences. They went on an expedition. They weren't looking for these specific tortoises, but they did find one, and unfortunately, when you describe a new species, you do have to have a sample, and therefore the animal has to die. Now, there were sightings and droppings and cactus marks from these tortoises, or allegedly from these tortoises, in the 1960s and then in 2013. So in 2019, an expedition was undertaken by the Galapagos National Park Directorate and the Conservancy of the Galapagos. There were 4 rangers in the expedition, and it turns out in 2019, they actually found a living specimen. This is so rare, by the way. So many people go out there looking for extinct animals, and almost never do you find a specimen you can actually put your hands on. These findings were presented on a television show by Forrest Galante. This happened in 2019. The show was called Extinct or Alive, and this show has been instrumental in proving that several species might be alive still, or maybe some of them actually are. Genetic testing was done, and in 2021, it was confirmed that this was the species they were looking for, and it turns out that it's likely there are 2 more on the island. One of my favorites, the Javan Tiger. Earlier on this year, when I started this channel, I talked about the Javan Tiger maybe, possibly, could possibly, maybe, perhaps be alive. And it was met with criticism and people calling me crazy. Well, guess what? Turns out I wasn't crazy. It's still alive. Indonesia is a series of islands, and there is tons of them. Java is one of the main islands with a giant population, and there's tons of animals there that are extinct, but used to not be extinct. That's usually how that works. 3 different tiger species populated the Sunda Islands during the last glacial period, 110,000 to 12,000 years ago. The Javan tiger used to inhabit most of Java, but its habitat decreased continuously, and then by the 1940s, it had retreated to remote montane forest areas, and that was basically it. In the 80s and 90s, there were studies to find the Javan tiger, but they came up empty, and then in 2008, it was declared officially extinct. What was really exciting is that there was an expedition and a reported sighting in 2019. The Javan Tiger went into a village. People saw it, they knew what it was. It couldn't be the leopard, which is still extant. There's no question about that. And again, our friend Forrest Galante went out there, he looked, he found some thermal imaging that when they put a drone up of what they assumed was a big cat, which would be a leopard or maybe a tiger, but it exhibited behavior more like a tiger than a leopard. However, there was no samples found, there was no actual eye sighting, and the details were, I guess, inconclusive. However, earlier this year in 2024, one piece of hair was found on a fence after another sighting of a Javan tiger in a village. That piece of hair, which could have been from a leopard perhaps, was brought in for testing, and guess what? The DNA absolutely matches a tiger, and the only tiger that could be in the area is a Javan tiger. The DNA doesn't lie, and there is almost 100% certainty that Javan tigers, at least one of them, are extant in the area. And if there's one, and the last sighting was in 1940, that means that there's been breeding since then. So there's still hope that there is a small population on the island. This silverback Chevrotane is something you probably has never heard of, but look at this thing. How cute. Often called a mouse deer. And these animals are from parts of Laos and Cambodia and that part of Asia. But the thing is, they were seen a ton. They were abundant just over 100 years ago. But 33 years ago, they were last seen and believed to be extinct, which is unfortunate. And of course, this animal was hunted for its meat, for its pelt, deforestation, and so many more things drove it to what we thought was extinction. But on an expedition in 2019, they were found again. Photographic evidence from trail cams showed that they existed. And upon further investigation, it turns out there is two more small populations, and in fact, this animal still lives. There is currently studies going on, figuring out how they live, where they live, how many of them are there, but there is definitely at least a small breeding population, or maybe even two. In number 1, cross river gorillas. The fact that a gorilla species can go extinct and then is found later is absolutely insane. The cross river gorilla is a subspecies of gorillas, and they're on the critically endangered list now. They live in Cameroon in Nigeria's forest, but it's suspected that there are maybe 200 or 300 left, and when a species gets to that level, where there's only a few hundred of them left, almost always they go extinct. This species was first found in 1904, and then by 1987, we thought that they were extinct. None had been seen, can't find them, and there's a deep forest and oftentimes not really safe for humans to go there because of other humans. But in 2009, photographic evidence of a family group, including babies, was discovered. This is great, because if there's babies, that means that they're breeding. Finally, significant sanctuaries have been introduced in Africa to protect this species. There is hope that they can regain a population, but time will tell. Let me know in the comment section below your favorite species that was extinct but then was rediscovered. I want to hear from you. As always, please hit like and subscribe, and we do videos every weekend, so I'll see you in the next one.